Hi guys, hi guys, hi guys, hi guys. Welcome to a wonderful, rainy, cold, and wet Sunday evening out here in Europe. Well, wherever you are, we're going to give you a little bit of entertainment. Rob is in the car. He's driving from London to I don't know where. And he says he's going to be a while because this is always work, 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 like as though this is so important. Anyway, so I'm sitting here. It's a Sunday evening, very quiet. I've also got some time, so we thought let's go and look for a video. And we decided on this one from SC Dawa, which is born with right and wrong question mark. And it's Mansur, he's a Muslim apologist, and an atheist girl. So we wanted to see what they have to say to each other. Welcome, Rob. Don't get distracted from the driving. Keep an eye on the road. You remember it's cold and wet, so you don't want to, be caught out in any way, right?
Good evening. Welcome to Thanks Stops. Welcome to everybody who's coming to listen, whether it's live or whether you're watching this as recording. I am totally focused on the road. I'm not looking at anything but the road, but I can hear in my right ear at the moment at least what's going on. So yes, I haven't watched this video. I don't think Stops has. So
No.
both of us are going to be listening to this for the first time. So let's see whether right and wrong is quote built in or whatever the title is, and let's get started.
All right, then everybody ready? Now, please don't get a fright. This was recorded in summer in Speaker's Corner. So this is why you see everybody running around in t-shirts and not in winter jackets. Okay, so this is old is gold, they call it.
Let's see how gold it is. I'm not hearing anything.
And this is my ideology. So I may be very compassionate to animals and I become a vegetarian.
Yes,
That could be my religion. That could be my way of life. You can define it in whatever you want. Okay? So that's not a problem, identifying yourself in that way. I think what
for me, that is not the way that I am thinking about religion is by organized by religion. I think that is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about ethics or morals because of course I have them. I'm a human like everyone else. But for me, that is more just the way that I conduct myself. That's more my personality. It's not a religion to me.
because the idea.
I don't know if we need to repeat anything. I don't know if we need to explain anything. I don't know if everybody can hear this. What the girl is saying is she does not have a God. She does not have a religion. She just says, okay, you have because a religion is X, and she provides her definition of what a religion is, and she says she doesn't. I think this is the background, and now Mansur needs to somehow convince her that she actually has a religion and that actually she does believe in a God or something. I don't know what he's going to do. If anybody wants, not only welcome Rob, but hey, I see people in the chat listening. Welcome, guys. Say, super to see you. If anybody else wants to comment something, wants to ask something, what you need to do, because I've only got half an eye on the monitor there, just go and put one enter, just so that I see something is happening. Then I will stop and you can ask a question, and we're going to try and address this. Okay, great stuff.
The idea of religion for most people is an organized religion, centralized to a linkage to a deity of some kind, or absence of a deity.
That
right?
is the way I'm
That's how you think about religion. Okay. So I think what the brother is trying to say.
Well, I think it's the same.
That's fine. That's fine.
We all do. Everyone do the
There's no
same.
point agreeing or disagreeing on this one. At least, we live our lives according to certain principles that we uphold. That's what it is, right? Now the question is, how should we live our lives? People disagree with that. You may say, look, I think we should live our life in mutual trust. We should live our life in harmony and compassion to each other. We should live our life according to principles which are good. So it could be that, okay, I should not harm you, you should not harm me. Yeah? That.
Okay, I think this is terrible. What he's doing is he's presupposing that everybody understands what good and bad is, what everybody understands what harm is, what all these things are. And he's not explaining them. He's not defining them. He's just saying, well, we all have this. We all have this. No, you don't. You think that throwing gays off a high building is good because that is what your God tells you is good. And this is what you're saying, but you can't go and assume that everybody agrees with you. So you need to go and explain what it is that you mean by right and wrong, by good and bad. You can't just go and think, well, everybody knows this. So I think this is horrible. Rob, any opinion on your side?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think the view is, that some people think that there's, what do we call it? The realist thinks that there's, or the objectivist thinks that there is, that morals are a fact of the matter, and the anti-realist or the subjectivist thinks that morals are determined by human beings, and they represent something that we've come to argue for or agree upon, or whatever the case is, or science has shown us based on a certain goal. But I think he needs to demonstrate this. But I think you're right. Just saying that everybody knows it is obviously not the case, because everybody has different ideas about it. So we first have to establish what this refers to and why other people should accept it as well.
Yeah.
I should be kind when kindness is needed or not needed. Yeah, regardless. I mean, somebody may be in a need of help. It doesn't have to be me, but I can still show some kindness just because I think it's better to help.
Exactly. Yes.
So these kind of things we live our life by. But what the difference in the approach that you and other people may have is actually rest on our own existence. Okay?
Just stop it there for a sec.
You'll have an idea.
This thing of, it just popped into my mind. This guy, he says, if somebody needs help, then we help them. I mean, a question to ask him is, so if a woman was buried up to her, to her shoulders or whatever, and people were about to stone her, and somebody said, well, I can't pick up these stones, they're too heavy for me, can you come and help me? Would he help somebody stone a woman to death? Right, because they're asking for help. So clearly, he's got to establish what help is. Helping what? Right? Do you help the murderer cut up the body or burn the body or whatever the case is? Right? As you say, it's kind of like he's ignoring this or almost begging the question as in like everybody knows what help is, as if it's some positive thing that he's already got in his mind, which he hasn't even argued for yet.
Yeah, exactly. And these things do require a lot of explaining, right from the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to go wrong in them. Absolutely. Okay, I'll continue.
Yeah, an understanding of what you're supposed to do in this life, but is it necessarily linked with where did you come from? What are you doing here? And where are you going to go after you die, for example? These are central questions that I'm sure you have thought about it, haven't you? Right? Right. So this is where our differences may be. You may think, no, there is no God, there is no creator, the universe is what it is. Science gave us an understanding of this world. Everything is natural.
It's true, but it does not give me a complete understanding. But yes, I
Something. And then
Perfect.
what happens after life is as everyone dies and the worm comes and hits you and so on and so forth. You can have an idea, an ideology based on this. Okay? But does it give you, based on these ideologies, does it give you the comfort in your heart and the tranquility in your heart?
Yes.
Does it?
I am
So-
a happy, tranquil person with my place in life. I'm happy with my place in the world and my ethics and my morals and the way I interact with other people. And I don't think, for me at least, it's not necessary to have that specific idea of religion with the deity and the books and the teachings. But I understand that is very important to some people, and I am completely fine with that. It's only once it starts to impact on my way of life and the way those people conduct themselves around me, and like I believe religion can be wonderful. I believe it gives some people a wonderful place and a wonderful community, but I don't think it's necessary, and for me it's not my believings. It's not
Do you
part
think
of my
life is
integrity.
Wow, that is really perfect. I mean, this is so nice. I wish I could do that all the time, to say, look, if you want to have it and you need it, okay, cool. And I can believe that there are elements and pieces and bits and so on which do help you, but you can't generalize it, and it's not really a necessity. I can do the same thing, and this is the perfect argument. I can do the same thing as you. I can feel happy, and my place in life is perfect without having a God in my life. And that's exactly the message that we should be outputting. That's Great.
Yeah, but also stops,
Without-
like you say, she's generalizing, and which religion is she talking about? And you can cherry pick something from any religion. I think you've got to be clear on which religion you're referring to, and be careful not to cherry pick.
Okay, but I can generalize. I can say every religion might have something positive. And that is just it. And if you cherry pick this, of course you can. It is now up to the specific, I don't know, apologist or whatever you want to call these guys, to now go and make the point for your specific God. It's not up to me, because I can look at 15, 20, 100 different religions and say, well, there's always something nice somewhere if I really want to. But now, can you show me that yours specifically does that? That is now the next step. But in general, I like her approach, that she says, look, there probably is something, and not everybody is a bad person just because they have a God or a religion or something. And that is it. So I think that's a very nice, very good message. I want to see how Mansur reacts to this now.
God?
Yes.
Okay. So suppose now the idea of God is man-made. I'm going to try the negative part of it, the other aspect. Suppose there is no God, no creator, no originator. That means the world is there. What a question about.
Is that not fantastic?
No. Let's take it to the right conclusions. The world is there. People have different ideas about this world. Now, how is life meaningful? Because whatever you think, there is no such a right or wrong thing, because everything is meaningless in the sense that everything. Let me tell you why I think this is.
Okay, sure. No,
Okay,
I'll
and
let you speak,
perhaps you
sorry.
can argue
Yeah.
with me. Because there's no creator, the concept of justice doesn't arise. Because what do you mean by justice? Nothing brought you into this life. Nothing asks you to be good. Nothing demands you to be good and just. So you live your life. Now, if
Okay, this is totally wrong. I don't know where he gets this from. Of course there is. We have ethics. We have a moral understanding. We have a concept that living is better than not living. We have a concept that not having pain is better than having pain. So we have these ideals. We have these sort of ideas in our lives, and we don't need anybody to teach us that an orgasm is better than a dentist drill. Everybody can understand that. We don't need to be taught these things. So I don't know what he is talking about.
I think also, right, he's saying that, well, nobody brought you to this world or told you right and wrong or whatever the case is. But I think even naturalistic views do have or do agree that there's some inherent things that appear to be quite natural in most human beings. But the other point is, I don't think he realizes it, but it's a point against him. If you need to be told to be good, if somebody's good because it's natural and they look around and they have empathy and so forth for other creatures, and I've asked this question to Muslims, right? If everything else being equal, if somebody did a good deed because they wanted to help their fellow man, and somebody did a good deed because they were commanded to by their God, which of those two people is more moral?
Exactly.
And the answer, it answers itself, doesn't it? So suggesting that you require God is actually in that sense, it's a point against your position, because it means that you would otherwise either not know or not want to, quote unquote, be good or do good if you didn't have a celestial dictator.
something makes you happy, right? Say, what makes you happy is cheating people, deceiving people. You climb up the ladder to be famous and successful, you get more money and you get more position and more power. If that makes you happy, for example, why should you stop cheating, deceiving? Because there is no morality that says that's wrong, because there is no idea of right and wrong in this.
Yeah, that's
What
nonsense.
utter nonsense. This is, okay, you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's nonsense. What he's really saying, but he's not being clear about it, of course, is that you don't have a God-based morality, therefore you don't have morality. And I mean, I don't know if he's ever looked at anything or discussed this in any nuanced way with anybody else that's not a believer. I imagine he has. It's gone in one ear and out the other, all over his head. But that statement is complete and utter nonsense. The only thing that he, if we were super charitable, the only thing he could be saying is, well, you don't have objective morality, which is what he means by morality, presumably, because you don't have a God, and my God is what grounds my morality. That might be what he's saying I'm actually making the argument far better than he does. But again, we'll get to that hopefully and show why that isn't the case. But that's clearly not, certainly the way he's described it, it's clearly complete nonsense.
Yeah.
I don't know if humans are born with an inept sense of what is right and wrong.
There's no such thing.
But
In that
I do
view.
believe, no it isn't, because that is my view. And I was brought up by two atheist parents in a rather atheist community, and I still learned to be kind to others because we are a human race.
Perfect argument. Perfect. This is exactly the way that you should be talking to them and showing them, listen, what you are claiming is utter nonsense, because I, without a God, without this belief, without this ulterior justice idea or something, I can be a good person just the same way as you can be a good person with your God. So you are being a good person in spite of what your God is telling you, and I can be the same thing without. That is the whole argumentation. That is what we need to tell people, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
We are in this world together. We are in this world to support each other and to help each other grow. And of course, there will be people who get by in life by cheating and hurting other
Are they
people.
wrong?
Yes.
Why?
Because we as a society, at least in this society, I don't know around the world, but we want to grow. We have created a place where we innovate, where we create, where we try and support each other. And for all those things to continue, we need to have those morals, we need to have those ethics, and they might differ a little bit. Some people might think truth is more important than kindness, or like things like that, and they're very important as well, because people are different. But still, if you hurt someone, then someone hurts someone back, and then it does get to you.
There you
So there
go.
are effects and causes and consequences. So if you aren't morally right or wrong, those come back to hurt you, and we learn. That's how children learn. Because if you're unkind to your friend, if you kick her and she kicks you back, that hurts you.
Well, so
that
seriously,
affects you.
so-
The circle continues.
So-
And we learn how to be just. I'm not saying everyone is just. I'm not saying everyone is kind. I'm not saying everyone has the right morals.
I'm
And this is exactly the point. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting again, but this is exactly what we need to sort of convey here, that if we live in a society, if we go and cheat and deceive somebody, we could be on the receiving end. Do we want this? Do we know what it's like to be deceived and cheated on? So this is something that we know is not good, and this is why we shouldn't be doing it to others. This is the old Hammurabi principle. It doesn't work every time, but it does work in a lot of different ways. And this is exactly the message. We're in a society. We are a human group. We live in a society. We are a species that likes to go and mingle and you know, that's the way that it is.
Yep.
I'm thinking differently, because if there is no,
How can you think different? How can you think that being cheated and you know, somebody deceiving you, that this is a good thing? How can you?
Did he say if the people think different? I didn't hear that clearly.
He said, I think different.
Oh, did he say I think different?
Yeah.
Okay.
out for a reason in this life, then there is no concept of justice or morality or any good values and principles. You are introducing this into your way of life, your ideology, because you think you are afraid of what we call of something reciprocal happening to you.
Yes.
If you are hurting someone, hurt might come to you. But suppose now you are in a position of power, a Brazilian drug lord. Nothing can hurt you. You have the power and the position and the tools to protect you.
Just stop it there
You
for a
live like
sec.
king.
I mean, that's also utter nonsense, right? Drug lords have, 100 bodyguards. They're always in fear of being butt off either by one of their own who's been bought out or one of the opposition. So they're constantly living in fear. So the idea that these guys live a life of paradise and are fulfilled and happy is complete nonsense, right? So all you're pointing to is extremely evil people and making the claim that somehow you're trying to elevate these people as if they don't have any worries or fears. They have massive amounts of that. They try not to show it, but they have it just like everybody else, to the point of paranoia, especially like you know about the one that was arrested, the biggest guy in the world. Paranoia, right? Used to bump off people that he thought might be wanting to take him over and stuff, looking over his shoulder all the time. So the fact that somebody has power, just means that most people are trying to cling on to power and they have the fear of losing it. So how is that necessarily a good thing? So all you do is pointing to bad people and what? Claiming that they might be good? What's your basis for that?
And then the other side of the coin is that in Islam you have people. I mean, I just need to point to the Saudis, to the Sultan of Brunei, to Saddam Hussein, to Gaddafi, to all these people who are despotic tyrants, and they are not doing this for the good of mankind. They are doing this to stay in power because they think they are doing something that is going to benefit them in the long run. So even in Islam, you have the same principle. Islam does not stop you from being a bad person. Quite the contrary, it even gives you the ammunition to be one. It tells you, we saw this in the Gin and Tonic show in the Quran, where it says, listen, go and bump off all the people that you don't like in the name of Allah, and Allah will even help you doing it. So they can then go and they say, well, we're doing it in the name of our Lord, and He is taking the responsibility, I'm not. So they can do the most atrocious things and still claim that this is a good thing. So, excuse me, mister, this doesn't work.
King, you exploit and abuse people with your intent and might, and you die like a king. And you get away from the justice that you think so exists, right? Now,
but in your...
So, no, in this case, why should someone be afraid? Because that person says, look, I have the power, I can just blow up people just like that because I have the means. Press of a button, I can destroy the whole city, for example. So, if someone does, so according to your thinking, if someone doesn't have the fear, then they're okay to actually live their life with deception.
No.
This is utter nonsense. If somebody doesn't have the fear, they're okay to live their life like that? No, we're not. That's exactly the opposite. And your claim is they don't have fear. Demonstrate that. They put on a hard-ass face about it, like I've said, but they're fearful all the time. And if they do die and they've killed these people and they, quote, haven't been brought to justice, because for theists, this idea of being brought to justice is like something that is so incredibly important to them that the thought of somebody, quote unquote, getting away with it is more than they can bear. Right? The fact that Hitler got away with it by committing suicide, for them, it's just they can't deal with this. So firstly, nobody's saying that it's good. Secondly, if he happens to get, quote unquote, get away with it, he's had this fear all this time. Yes, he's inflicted pain and suffering. At no point is an atheist going to say that's okay. And why? We can appeal to the golden rule and many other things. So this guy's, I don't know how old this video is. I wonder if he's actually learned anything since this.
No, I'm actually surprised they put this up, because this is a real excellent demonstration how a young, experienced girl can totally demolish any arguments that Mansur has, who is seen as, one of the great Muslim apologists. And the Muslims standing around him don't stop him. They don't say, listen, guy, you're making a mistake here. She's got better points than you have.
Well, they don't
I'm amazed that they're keeping this.
Yeah, they don't even know it, right? They're more clueless than he is. So
Or maybe that's,
blind, right?
Yeah.
With bad morality of killing people, murdering, raping.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
So it's okay for them.
Well, yes, because as we have those people in this society right now. Even with religion, we have those people in every single society.
So are you saying it's okay for them to do that?
I'm not saying it's okay for them to do that, but they will continue to be here.
Please.
Let's understand again one thing. I want to know your reasons. Your reasons of why we should have ethics and morality is that fear that if I don't do good to others, bad will be done to me. Like,
I think, yes, we
Yes.
learn.
Right.
We learn
That's
lessons,
one
and
part
that's
of it.
what
so
people
what?
I mean, that's just one part of it. But she did say earlier on that you want to help everybody. Essentially, she basically said if you want to improve society, here's certain things, right? The hypothetical imperative, based on sort of Manuel Kant's type of approach. Right? So if you have this goal, here are certain things that you do to move you towards that goal. Right? She did say that in the beginning. And then she also mentioned, kind of alluding to the golden rule. So, and there's a lot more to it than that. Right? That's just touched the surface of it.
what if?
That is how we teach children.
Yeah, what if that fear is not in the equation?
How do we get rid of that fear? How do we get rid of human interaction?
The reasons why you're trying to be
sure.
good, trying to be just and kind, and not to abuse and exploit and deceive people and be dishonest, it seems to be linked to the idea that the loss of something in return if you didn't behave that way.
Like, I assume in your religion, you get taught to be kind and to have those ethics correct. Is that?
Let's let religion aside.
No, I'm not talking.
We are talking.
You cannot let religion aside. You are the one bringing in religion. You are the one making the claim that you need religion to be, in some way moral. You are the one bringing it in. You are doubting that you cannot be good without religion. And then you say, well, let's leave religion aside. That's crazy.
But
On a
also,
principle, I apologize.
she's appealing to, or he's challenging, he's not using those words, but he's basically challenging the idea of self-interest. You only do things because it benefits you, essentially. Well, in a sense, to some degree, that might be true. But also, if I allow other people to live happily, society grows, and ultimately, I am part of the benefit of that. But I also think that if you look at societies where it's very repressive, the people that are like the dictators, Kim Jong-un and these sort of people, they don't have any real fulfillment. They've got the fear they're going to be, bumped off by one of the generals or whatever the case is. But there's no fulfillment there in being a despotic dictator. Whereas there is fulfillment in people seeing other people succeed, to see happiness among other human beings. For most people, not everybody. But I think the claim that these dictators are happy and fulfilled and all the rest of that demonstrate this. I'm disputing that heavily.
Yeah. And I can't help notice, look around you. Look at all the faces. Look at the guys behind him. Everybody's frowning and they have these angry faces. And now look at her. She's happy, she's smiling, she's friendly. She doesn't need all this anger that these other guys have. So it's quite amazing.
But the other thing stops.
Rob, don't look at the screen.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at the road. But the other thing stops. I think I'm actually repeating myself. They've got this need, right, for this justice. And the idea if somebody gets away with it, that's unthinkable. So we've got to have a celestial dictator that tells us, what to do. But even if you're told what to do, you still don't follow it, as I think she pointed out. But him telling you what to do, how does that actually help you? Because actually, you're doing it because of self-interest as well, because you don't want to go to hell. So it's all ultimately, to use the example, it's all about you anyway. The only reason you don't do it is because you're told not to, and if you do, then you have this incredible punishment. It would be even better in a religion where God said, hey, here's some guidelines, but if you don't do them, there's no punishment. Somebody did something popped up there.
Thank you, Mojake. Canadian dollars. Keep them Canadian dollars popping. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jake.
Much appreciated for your super chat. It's very rare and much appreciated, so thank you. So I think the idea of self-interest goes across and appealing to a God doesn't get you out of self-interest, because there you want to avoid hell. But like I said, if there was a God that said, hey, you can do whatever you like and there's no negative consequence for not doing it, heaven is assured, for example, now that would actually be more of a moral thing. Now you don't have the idea of the negative consequences stopping you from doing it. Now you'll see whether you actually have self-interest at heart or not. But I think every religious person has self-interest at heart, as well as perhaps most non-religious people. But some people just do it for the sake of wanting to see other people happy. You can still argue that's self-interest, I guess. But there's also degrees of self-interest. So they don't get out of self-interest by appealing to a God.
Now, Marijana did not send any Canadian dollars your way, I'm sorry. But she quoted this: if you were not to commit sin, Allah would sweep you out of existence and he would replace you with those people who would commit sin. So this is this God saying, I want people to commit sin because those are the people who are useful for me or to me or whatever. So there you go.
Apologize to cut you off. We are talking on a principle level. There is no God, there is no originator. So we are there floating around in the universe, making a life meaningful to our own selves. Now, so why should one who is not afraid, have no fear that police will come and get me and people will come and get me.
I'm not
Because
an
you're...
anarchist.
No, let's understand something. We are trying to understand these issues of being kind and good and
I
just.
understand.
If there is no fear associated with you, then to kill someone unjustly and to rape someone, murder someone, cheat and exploit and abuse, all the bad things that you know,
Yes,
right?
there will always
To do these things, why would that be not okay?
And this shows how corrupt his morality is. Because what he is saying is, I need to, oh, Jesus, whoa, you're really generous tonight. What he is saying is, you need to have fear to stop you from doing bad things. Otherwise, you would go on a rampage because nobody is stopping you, because you are not going to be held accountable. In other words, you are not doing this from within yourself. You are only doing this because you are afraid of punishment. And that's why I'm always saying my level of morality is on a much higher level, because I don't need the fear not to do something, and I do good not because I'm being rewarded. So it shows.
But that's why I said stops. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think that's why that question to a Muslim in particular is, I think, a powerful one. All things being equal, who's the more moral person? The person that is commanded to be moral, or the person who does it through altruism and not being commanded by God?
Exactly. Yeah. And if he will not be able to answer.
Because you still live in a society that honors. I'm not
Doesn't
saying.
care. That person doesn't care.
Of course.
Of course. Oh my God, this guy is thick. I mean, why do people think that Mansur is such a wonderful debater and that? I can't believe it. This guy is thick. He still doesn't understand that a society it has the component of social in it. And if we are going to be social in any way, we are interacting with each other. And if I am being bullied all the time, I am not going to have a pleasant life. So I should experience being bullied to know, this is not good. And therefore I am not going to bully others because I know what it's like. That is the way that it works.
And I think what he's doing
makes him
here,
happy?
right, it's a very low-level sort of attempt at a critique. He's basically saying, well, hang on a moment. If you get this outliers, these people who don't agree with you, why ought they agree with you? Now, let's be clear. In any moral system, there are certain presuppositions. You can't prove everything. It'll become a circular argument. So somebody has to agree with certain presuppositions. If the murderer agrees that well-being is something that he or she wants to live by, then we can speak to them. They have to agree to be rational. If somebody's irrational and lives by a code that disagrees, then there's nothing we can do to appeal to them to go, hang on a moment, here's why you're wrong. But the same thing applies to God. If you either don't accept the God, or you do accept the God, but you don't think the God does punishment, or you think the God is in fact Satan in disguise, and so you don't accept their presuppositions, there's nothing you can do that's going to convince somebody who's a non-believer, right? So the argument plays out the same way. So this looking for the outliers and saying, well, what would you say to them? My response is, well, they've got to accept certain presuppositions. Then I can argue for why they're wrong, even if they think they're right. However, if they don't accept one or two of my starting presuppositions, then it's a lost cause. But that works the same for any system out there. If they don't accept your starting point, you've got no chance of convincing them. And just claiming that God exists and he's going to send you to hell is not going to be a deterrent for some people. As we know, there are theists, both Muslim, Christian, and others, that apparently believe in a hell and are not deterred by some terribly immoral things. So it doesn't help appealing to a God. We keep saying the same thing. You haven't demonstrated it's objective or good, or that this consequence of hell actually has a meaning of effect on everybody. And if you're going to appeal to the outliers, we can do the same thing and appeal to the theistic, or in this case, the Muslim outliers, and say, well, what about this Muslim who claimed to believe all of this, knew that he was going to hell and did it anyway? How would you argue to him that he's wrong? Because he doesn't believe what you're telling him, or he's ignoring it.
Well, you can't, of course, yeah.
What he's cares,
exactly.
or she cares.
So the critique is...
Exactly. No, I think the whole paradigm that he is creating here is a false one. because it's not realistic. It doesn't work that way. It's not the case that, there are prisons in Europe which are full of Muslims. Why is it? Because they cannot handle freedom. They cannot handle a life where there is no peer pressure amongst themselves to always keep an eye on each other to not do wrong things. So they go and rape and steal and do all sorts of things. And of course, they are then being caught and go to jail. So it doesn't mean that a Muslim who is not in the environment, who is not being watched, does not commit any kind of crime. That is not true. That would be great, by the way. That would be an incentive for me to go and perform this dawah thing. If I can get people out of jail and if I can stop crime through that, that would be great. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
If I was a Brazilian drug lord, and I'm not afraid of anyone or anything, I have the power and the means to live my life like a king and abuse and exploit and do all the bad things that you would abhor and say, desist, don't do that. Suppose now I am in a position, why should I live the way you're living? Like, try to be charitable. No, I don't need to. What makes me happy is by killing people, for example. Suppose killing people makes me happy. So you're saying and my way of thinking is actually okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I'm not saying that.
Why would my thinking of my way of life be wrong?
Because there is still a society with values.
I don't care. I don't care.
Jesus Christ, this guy is stupid. I'm sorry. But come on, how can he bring up this? She has been so eloquent in describing the situation to him. And he is coming up with the same example that has just been shown to be stupid. And he brings it up again as though this is something compelling. It is not. All you are saying is if somebody has the power, there is nothing to stop him. There is no what you just brought up, like Hitler. They can't wrap their heads around Hitler getting away with it. This is the same example that he's bringing up again and again and again. He simply cannot get into his skull that there are people who are going to hold that person accountable. And yes, not everybody is caught. Some people get away with it. Yes, I have this every single day where I see people jumping the queue and I want to go up to them and slap them. But yes, they get away with it. But at some stage they will not. Okay, I don't believe that karma happens, but I do believe that at some stage somebody is going to be there like me. With me, he's going to, not be able to do that. I've had people going into curbs. I've had people going into bushes because they thought they can squeeze in and they couldn't. And then they were so angry with this that they, caused, something detrimental for themselves because they were so angry because they were out of control. And that is how it works. You can't say, well, there's a God and he's going to punish you and just let them be and so on. No, that's silly. I don't know why he brings up the same example again and again when it's silly.
Those people exist even in this society.
No. I don't care because
No, I understand.
at the end of the day,
and there are going to be horrible people.
listen.
There
Yes.
are going to be horrible people.
my
I'm not
sister
saying
in
that
humanity.
it's
My
not.
sister in humanity.
Yes.
If there is no consequence and justification of our actions and your beliefs, if there is no accountability and responsibility in the
There is by
hereafter,
other humans, not by a
no,
higher source, not
no,
by
no,
others.
Other human, those are
what I'm saying is, leave others aside. I don't care
What
what.
do you mean?
But this is the whole point. This is the whole argument. You can't rely on a non-existent God to give you this ultimate justice that you are hoping for. And this is exactly, she's making the same point that I'm trying to make. And she's doing it wonderfully. And I don't understand how Mansur still cannot get it.
Stops. We could use a counterexample, right? Suppose there was a particular Muslim slave owner, maybe whose first name started with M, and you happen to say, and this person claimed to be fearless and had power and had an army and everything, and you say to this person, but hang on a moment, slavery is wrong. Would you be okay to be a slave? All right, let's see if and if he said no, then he would be a hypocrite. And you say, do you believe in reason? Do you care about your fellow human being? If he said no, I don't care about any of these things, I just want to do what I'm doing, then nothing will make the difference. So whether you use the drug dealer or a particular Muslim slave owner, starting with them, the same thing would apply. If they don't care or they can't be convinced with reason, then it makes no difference. And even if you point out in their view that God's going to do X, and they say, well, I don't care, What are you going to do? How are you going to convince them? The simple answer is you can't. So calling for outliers like this, if they're rational and they are consistent, I think we can appeal to a moral system and show them why they are wrong, even if they think they're correct. However, if they don't accept those presuppositions, there's nothing we can do, and that applies to everybody.
Yeah, but don't come to me and say I've got high moral standards.
Yeah, sure, but if you are leaving others aside, then no, I want to talk, please. Those people will exist no matter what society we are in. I don't think it has anything to do with if we're living in a society controlled by the Bible, by the Quran, by atheism, by science. Those people are always going to exist. People have no disregard, who have disregard for other people's well-being. I'm not saying like everyone, I don't want everyone to be an atheist. That is my
what I didn't understand.
Let her talk.
If I'm in a position of power and authority, right? Then my way of life is my way of life that makes me happy, right? So if killing people makes me happy, you shouldn't say you shouldn't do that because that's your way of life, maybe not to kill a religion. No, we're not talking about religion.
He really doesn't understand.
I'm saying we're living in a model. Let's understand this. No, you don't understand my point though. I am saying, suppose we agree there is no God by sake of argument. If there is no God, there is no moral accountability.
That is not true. You have accountability to other human
Where did that
beings.
come from? Where did that come from?
What do you mean?
No.
Decently.
Where did that accountability come from?
Passion.
Where did that come
I
from?
told you before, there is a sense of fear that is part of it.
If I'm not afraid?
But you're afraid of your God. It's the
No.
same thing. You're scared of your other
My
human
sister,
beings'
again, you're bringing
reactions.
God in. In our example,
It's unbelievable. She's explaining this for the 15th time now, and he still doesn't get it. He's always talking about his God and says we're not talking about God. I don't know. she has a remarkable level of patience.
there is no God, right? In our argument. So don't break it going.
Okay.
In a godless universe, we are living our life according to our own ideologies.
Yes.
Now, suppose I am a very powerful person. What makes me happy?
How many times is he going to come up with
Just
the
repeat
same
himself, right?
stupid-
But we've seen this tactic before, right? When they don't have an answer, they just repeat the question as if it hasn't been answered. And that tells you immediately they just haven't got anything to respond with. Hijab did the same, right? Just keep repeating the same question. When you don't have anything substantial to respond with, I'll just repeat the question as if that somehow shows that you haven't answered it, when in fact it's exactly the opposite. The other person doesn't have an adequate response, so they just repeat the question. It's not like she didn't understand it and she hasn't responded to it. So this can only tell us that either he doesn't have a response or he doesn't care, in which case he keeps asking the same question.
But here it becomes so painfully obvious.
Happy is making me happy by, doing all the bad things.
Well, then we can just talk about evolution. We can talk about
Let's
how
talk about-
it's not really good for, evolutionary for you to want to kill other people of your own race because then you don't
Evolution.
Brilliant. I mean, because there are so many different factors that govern this. There's psychology, there's science, there are so many different things that you can bring up that demonstrate where we get morality, how we get it, how we differentiate between right and wrong. There are so many different things, and it's really nice how she's bringing them up. And he simply doesn't understand, and it doesn't matter what she's bringing up, he simply cannot grasp it. Wow.
Evolution says in one of the models, the survival of the fittest. Maybe I am the
Oh my God. Okay, now I'm face palming. Okay.
fit guy, which has all the power and authority to destroy everyone else for that person's own happiness. So suppose that I want to be happy because that will make me fit.
You think if we're in...
Yes, just stop it there.
I'm going-
I mean, he's clueless on survival of the fittest anyway. It's environmental pressure. But the sort of almost nonsensical claim is that, hey, if I murder everybody, I'm going to be happier. Look, that's a claim demonstrated. Demonstrated people on their own are happier than people. We're a social species. Demonstrated. And if you point to an outlier, you can always do that, right? You can point to somebody who wants to be on there and go, look, I found somebody. What you want to do is show that this is the norm. In other words, is it in fact better for people to be, on their own or in part of a social group? part of what happens when you get sentenced into prison is solitary confinement, one of the worst punishments. Why? Because it goes against the very nature of human beings. So you'd have to demonstrate it's a massive claim, and I think the evidence is exactly the opposite. So I would ask him demonstrate the fact that if somebody else kills everybody, they're better off.
Yeah.
Going to say the word God.
By the way, I can't get over the guy in the middle of the picture. His face, how he is following the discussion is so wonderful.
That's what I'm going to say. Yes,
There is no God in this equation.
I need to talk about God.
So I find it strange, though. I find it strange, my
I
sister.
need to
What's your name?
Audrey.
Audrey, I'm Mansur. I find it strange. The atheists, or person who doesn't believe in God, people who don't believe in God, cannot get away from bringing God into the equation.
What is he talking about? What the hell is he talking about?
He says we're not talking about religion, we're not talking about God, but you can't talk about this without God. What an idiot.
His presupposition is that you guys have invented morals, but mine aren't invented. And the way I know that is because I have a God. What the hell is he talking about? She's given her view. He's critiquing it with the presupposition that it must be wrong because he has a God. But he doesn't want to explicitly say it and then claims that it's not talking about religion. I mean, does he think that we were born yesterday? That we don't know what the hidden presupposition is? I mean, what's his name? Hamza, the other Redbeard Hamza does the same. Hey, I didn't bring God into it. As if he has to say the word explicitly so that we know that he's talking about a God. There's a covert, implicit inference that their God exists, and that's what they're arguing for, as if we didn't know this. They don't have to say the word out loud for us to know what their basis of critique is. Hey, you guys don't have a God, and therefore we don't accept your, quote unquote, made up morality. But we've got one that is woven into the fabric of the universe. Well, back up that claim.
It's impossible for them. I'm saying, look, the model. I'd like you to respond. The model we are proposing is it's a godless model.
Yes.
There is no God.
Yes.
So don't bring God in. We're not interested in a God in this moment. So
How
in
are
a
we
model like
supposed
this,
to reflect and refer if we don't have
in a situation like this, so I am bringing you an example. I am bringing an example where I am saying what makes me happy is to say kill people,
yeah, I
right?
understand. We've had
Right.
this argument 4 times in a row.
So if that makes me happy, that's my way of life, and you're saying no, I'm accountable to someone else. I'm
You're
saying,
accountable to other humans.
why am I accountable? Who decides that?
And they're equal. None of them is higher than him. Why
I don't care about other human beings.
Okay, then you are a horrible person just like you would be
Why
a
is he horrible?
Right. Doesn't matter if I'm horrible, that makes me happy. Because I know there is no life
Why
after
do you
death.
need to be
Let me-
accountable to like a higher being?
No. Again,
as you are calling us other
Audrey,
brothers and
Audrey,
sisters. Yes.
you're again bringing another higher being. In our model, there is no higher being. This is all the life that we
All
have.
people equal. Remember?
Brother, 1 second. This is all the life we have. So I know in this model, I have only how many lives? Only one life. So in this one life, if killing people, raping people makes me happy. Of course, God forbid this is ever happens to anyone, right? Okay? Because we are decent people. I'm just giving you an example out of physical violence. Suppose now I was that horrible person who is happy by doing all these things. And that person, me, for example, thinks this is only one life, and I think, okay, fine, I'm gonna do whatever makes me happy because that's only one life I have. Why should I be restricted by
For the
your
18th time.
arbitrary sense of
Jeez.
goodness and morality and justice? Because somehow, it will. If I don't become good to you, I might be reciprocally being bad to me by other people. But if I don't fear about bad things happening to me because I am in a position of power and authority and money and wealth, then basically you're saying I can just live my life accordingly and there should not be any
Still
accountability.
have the justice. Yeah,
What
still-
justice?
The cult justice.
She's saying there's accountability.
Wait.
She did say there's accountability. He's saying, and you're saying there isn't accountability. Maybe what he means, and he misspoke, is that person isn't accountable because they have power and justice. Well, it's true
Exactly.
that if they have power and justice, they're not accountable, as in like they can avoid accountability using their power and justice. But the claim is that actually the bigger claim here is that they actually, the person who's doing this is better off. Or I think that the people that claim this are mistaken. And like we said before, if they were rational and we could appeal to them, we could show that, in fact, what they think is, in fact, the best for them, they are mistaken, as long as they accept certain presuppositions. If they don't accept them, and same with anybody else, then we've got no starting point. So if you're speaking to a psychopath or a lunatic who doesn't have empathy and doesn't care about rationality, you're screwed, but that's the same for everybody else. So I mean, like you said, we're repeating ourselves because he is here, but I think we'll leave it at that. There's not much more we can say here. They've got to accept certain things, and we could explain to them then, if they accepted or understood it, that in fact they are mistaken. The fact that they are killing other people doesn't make them as happy as living in harmony with other people and seeing those people go. They haven't realized, they haven't evolved to realize this.
We have lawyers. We have laws.
This is a kangaroo court. What justice? There is one life.
If you go around, you're happy going around killing people. One just originate.
In this model, there is no God. There is only one life, and we know that certain things make us happy.
Don't tell me he's going to repeat the whole thing, No, come on.
Certain things make us sad.
So if you are
So,
equal, you shouldn't be no
if
super.
I want to live my
Like,
life
you
and
can
to my fullest,
You're assuming super skill for all
to
my life.
fulfill my life,
Somebody else's life.
the one life I have,
Women are just
I should try to fulfill what makes me happy.
The head of the people.
Are
This
they
is
God
my
over me?
ideology.
But that does not mean we
Are they
No,
God over
if
me? There's no
by
God in the
doing
equation.
that-
Doesn't matter. If you kill someone,
I
you
don't
should be
care
called-
what
So why
you
should they
define
not
as
push it to
justice.
make a justice
Because
system over me?
So you're
Why should they not-
you can't be put in jail.
Why-
We still have lawyers. We still have society. We still have phones which I can call the police on. It's not.
I can just press a button and destroy the whole lawyers in their court.
But you can do that even if you're
Oh, so
religious.
you're magic. You're magic.
No magic.
We tried to
No,
stop
it's not
that. We
magic.
stopped selling. We
Do you
tried to
know what
stop selling
happens?
certain things.
Do you
They
know
can't get
what
hold of that.
happens? Do you know? Certain countries, they go to another country, certain countries, they invade another country, yeah, with some pretext. Like we went to Iraq with the pretext of weapons of mass destruction that never existed, right? And we destroyed the whole civilization and the people, thousands of children.
Okay, so
Now,
people are corrupt.
people do that. Now, what I'm saying is, why are you blaming them if that makes them happy? In that model.
Because we all
Mental laziness
have a
and
sense
dishonesty.
of belonging in our society.
I can't believe this question. I mean, she's explained it. I don't know how many times now. I don't understand how he can't get it, or is he just pretending, or is he just pretending to be stupid, or is this his MO that just pretend you're stupid and ask the same question again and again? What is this? I don't get it.
She's responded. Stops. Yeah, she's responded. He doesn't have anything substantial to say other than, oh well, you can't convince him. You couldn't convince him that it's wrong, or if he thinks it's right, what are you going to do about it, type of thing. And she's explained it, I've explained it, you've explained it. At this point, we're just going to say that he's repeating himself.
Yeah, and the thing is, he can't. The interesting thing here is that he cannot go and say, well, let us put God into the equation now, and let us see how much better the whole thing works when there's a God. He doesn't do that. He cannot do that because he's going to shoot himself in the foot. So the interesting thing here is he cannot go and make a positive case for Islam. He can only try and make a negative case for her arguments that she's bringing up. That's the only thing that he can do, nothing else.
I don't. You do. I don't. I don't.
But that does not mean that other people
Don't
do
think-
not. That does not mean
when
you are
you
not
catch them pinned
accountable.
up,
And if you are,
Why am I going to be
But
accountable?
that
I
does
don't
not,
care.
I'm not saying the world is perfect. I'm not saying a world
Exactly.
of atheism is going to result in everyone being happy and rainbows and sunshine. I'm saying, sure, there might be a corrupt person who blows up everything.
No,
but
you
that
call
does-
me corrupt, but that makes me happy. If something makes me
I'm
happy,
not,
call me
I don't want to
corrupt.
make you sad. That's
No,
not what I'm
listen. If blowing innocent people in a bus or an automobile
Yeah.
makes me happy, you're taking my happiness away from me.
Yeah.
You are a corrupt person. You are actually an evil
Those
person
we'll remember.
who are imposing some sense of morality and
Stop,
justice.
she'd be stopping evil.
Audrey, do you see
Stopping
that?
evil.
In my view,
You would be
in
evil.
my view,
Yeah, your view's wrong, obviously.
What
But
is
this
he
has nothing
doing?
to do
I
with
go
the
around
sense
killing
of
people when
God.
I'm
That just
happy.
has to do
And
with
you
ethics.
stop me.
It's an
that's
evolution.
the
Sorry?
that's the model.
Sorry, can somebody explain to me what he's just said? I didn't understand what he's doing now.
I couldn't hear it so well because there's somebody else speaking as well.
Because I couldn't understand what she said that she is not. I don't know. Do I need to rewind this or should we wait until he
I'm
repeats
not sure
it?
that we'll be able to hear it any better.
You believe
If
never
there is
existed.
no
There's more
God,
proof for evolution than there
you
is for God.
cannot come
There's
to me and say, you know
There's
what,
no proof for God.
he just,
There's
I'm
loads of
saying I
proof
don't
for
care.
evolution.
Because
And
there
your
isn't a
DNA
God, and
says
I'm
that
saying
you
it
come
right
from the
now.
I'm
animals.
saying,
I'm saying
I'm
it's
saying,
not
you,
okay.
okay.
I'm saying, okay.
Okay, I get it. He is now accusing non-believers of having a false sense of morality and expect those people that do have a God that hold them accountable to leave it behind and not to have it. So he is accusing her of imposing her views on him by saying you don't need to have a God, which he's not doing. So it's a total, complete, utter strawman.
I will say, both you are entitled to your opinion, I don't buy it. I don't buy it, but I'm entitled to my
I'm
opinion.
very happy that your religion makes you happy. I'm very happy that your religion provides you that community and that sense of purpose in life. And that is so fantastic. You're really glad about that.
So you're okay with me killing people?
The DNA can't come from
Oh, no, I said I'm okay with you having a religion. I didn't say I was okay with you murdering.
That's interesting. He equates having Islam as a religion forces him to kill people. Because the first thing that he says, well, are you okay that I have a religion? She says, yeah, I'm totally okay if you have a religion. So he says, are you okay with me killing people? So he equates Islam with killing people.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because I think there seems to be some confusion there, right? If she's okay with him having a religion, obviously she's not going to be okay with him killing somebody. I think he's trying to, maybe again, if we're charitable and try and see if we can follow this bad line of reasoning here. Maybe what he's trying to say, okay, so you give me my religion, but if I want to kill people, are you okay with that? But that's not the way it came across anyway. But I can't imagine, I'm just trying to think of how he could have said it in a more coherent way.
I am providing a model in which there is no God, and we live in a godless society, godless nation, godless earth, with our own made purpose.
Okay, so let's just, we're not humans, okay? We're, I don't know,
Humans.
dogs for example. Dogs do not believe in
Tigers.
God. That does not mean they don't have
Tigers
like,
and crocodiles.
society, and that does not mean that they don't have like cannibalism and
Brilliant.
Tigers.
Brilliant. That's another good point. Jesus, this girl is amazing. Animals who do not have religions, who don't read the Quran, are actually able and capable of demonstrating altruism. And that is something that is amazing, and that is an argument that we should always bring up. And I'm actually quite sad I didn't think of this before. Thank you very much for bringing this up. This is for me the kingpin. Because it demonstrates very, very vividly that you do not need a God to be altruistic, to be kind to others, to be generous to others, and to help others. It is not a requirement at all. And here we see it demonstrated. Super point.
And at the very least, it's not. It doesn't require a Quran, right? So even if there were some theistic God, what it does show is that it doesn't require a Quran, because clearly animals can't read a Quran or understand it. And as you say, altruism is shown amongst different animals, including fish, rats, monkeys, etc., right? So if they can demonstrate it without being able to read or understand God, and if you're going to claim that God put morals into them, then, I mean, how do you falsify this claim? Because everything you're going to just say is, well, God did that. Well, God did that. Well, at what point, what would the world have to look like in order for you to accept that God did not do it, or is not the source of morality for other beings other than humans? Because presumably I don't think that animals can be moral.
But it's amazing. I mean,
I'm also gay. I might be going through a black spot, so if I don't speak or whatever for a significant time, it might only be because either I can't hear the video or I might drop out. So you obviously keep going. I will respond whenever I can, but if there's a long pause, it might be because I go through a bad spot.
And Marijana brought again the sword verse. Marijana, if you go to the Gin and Tonic show of last Friday, in chapter 8, and I can't remember if it was 55 or 57.
55.
Something like that, exactly. One of those sentences, which is even a lot worse. When I came across this, I was, oh my God, I forgot about this sentence. I forgot about how bad chapter 8, the spoils of war, actually is. So there's a lot of this. So thank you for that. But wow, this is it's so terrible. Now, if this girl cut off his arms, now she's cut off at least another leg. So if I take the analogy of the Dark Knight, or the Black Knight, he's only got one leg left. He's hopping around, still saying, "Okay, fight me, I'll kill you, I'll demolish you," and things. He's got nothing. He's got nothing. Every time he brings up something, she brings another argument, which brings him even further down. Every single argument she brings kills him down. And this is exactly what Show Me is saying. She is smashing Mansur. Absolutely. I'm so surprised that they put up this video, which shows the total intellectual bankruptcy of Mansur here. This is, wow. No, it's a flesh wound, exactly.
And crocodiles, all these carnivores, which are at the top of the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Do they say, I'm going to feel some compassion because you know what? I'll
That's
just
a pack creatures.
humans, according to this model,
Pack creatures,
Human-
we survive in groups, which means we want to preserve the groups in society.
so if you're a
that we are
tiger,
in.
if you're a tiger,
I'm not a tiger.
now if you were a tiger, would you say, I'm going to let that deer go out of compassion?
No, because
If you're hungry,
What the hell is
if you're
he
hungry,
talking
Not
about?
the point.
and there is this deer coming through,
Holy crap.
would you say,
He's like not following at all. It's
No.
not that the tiger's going to suddenly let something go. The tiger needs something to eat, right? What
Yes.
you're saying, or I understand you to be saying, is that some animals demonstrate altruism, i.e. for the kin. Maybe not for an out-group, but certainly for their own kin, their own
Exactly.
group, right? And at least that's something in animals. But it's not that the tiger's suddenly going to, okay, well, I'm going to let you go because I feel, I mean, like, what's going on here? Has he lost the plot?
Yeah. And by the way, who set up this planet that a tiger needs a deer? I think this was your god, Mr. Mansur, right?
Yeah, and it could easily have been that the tiger didn't need to eat a deer. It could have had different stomach and grazed grass, or in fact, the moment
Olives,
the tiger
exactly.
touched it, as it's been pointed out before, the moment the tiger touched it, there was a natural anesthetic, and the deer immediately collapsed and was unconscious painlessly, and then was devoured. Right? That would have been, less unnecessary suffering. All we need to show is that there's unnecessary suffering that your God allows, and that's hugely problematic. So pointing out to animals is not going to help you. And in fact,
Yeah.
the argument you're trying to bring now
Opposite.
is it's almost basically nonsensical. At no point is she saying that a tiger's suddenly not going to eat. He doesn't even understand what altruism is, or in-group altruism, because that's presumably what she's talking about.
I'm going to let it go? Or would you say, I
Well,
don't
from
care?
what we can think, tigers don't have conscious thought and conscious streams of, decision making in such a way that, we don't have.
But we are just animals like all these other animals.
It's evolution.
Right? In this model, we are just other animals. We
No,
cannot
we're
claim-
not. We're not.
We cannot
We
not.
have consciousness,
Okay.
and we can recognize each other in a mirror, and I can pull up a list of why we're not like any other animal. But sure.
Where did consciousness arise in this model?
Oh, can somebody please slap him? My goodness, this is
Yeah, he's now
bad.
shifting the goalpost. He doesn't really have any good response to anything she said, other than to say, oh, well, there's certain people that might not accept this, which is, self-defeating, because that's the same for everybody. But now he's gone on to a completely different topic. And this is another tactic, right? You just got to realize with people like this, they'll never concede that they don't have any decent response, and they'll just shift the goalpost very quickly and subtly to get her now to talk about consciousness, because he can't get any further with the moral argument.
Yeah, with any kind of rational argument.
Model?
I have no idea.
Perfect. I love this girl. Yeah, this is exactly what. Okay, Rob has a better explanation. You should not say I don't know, because this is going to be exploited. You should say there are different models and I'm undecided. So I agree with that. I'm sorry, Rob. I have to agree with you.
A scientist.
This is where this model
you
doesn't
read
work.
A book that
No.
someone gave you that you have
Audrey,
learned
this is
from
how.
there.
So far, have I quoted anything from the book? Any book?
No.
So as you can see,
But
our acceptance of a model
I think she believes in God. She's an atheist.
is actually something that we use our intellect
You believe in that, yeah.
to arrive at these conclusions. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not an anarchist, and I'm not a horrible person that I describe myself to be. I'm a Muslim, and as a Muslim,
believe in God. I think she
even
believe
if
in
there
God.
was a million pound left
She's a
somewhere
secret
there,
believer.
I cannot, and I will
I think
not
she's a
take
secret
it
believer in
because
God.
I know that
mentioned
every
God.
single penny of that £1,000,000, I have to account for it in the hereafter, in the day of judgment, which didn't belong to me. Okay, this is because I believe in a Creator who has given
I thought you're not talking about, have I brought God into this? Yes.
us, gave us the sense of justice. Justice demands that the money that doesn't belong to me, I shouldn't take it myself.
Yes,
But your justice comes from
But the funny thing is, he's brought this argument, I don't know how many times now, and he still thinks that he's saying something that is in some way profound. Come on.
society, by my other fellow human beings, by the law.
She said this 20, 50 times now.
You like, and some people don't. Some people really don't, and that's not good. Some people don't go to jail. Some people do get away with it, and that's the way that this world.
So why should it come from other
So-
human? My one question, sorry. Why should it come from other human being? When we are all equal, they're not a god over me. I'm not superior than them. They're not superior than me.
This guy battles
Why
the
should my
language you
justice,
can barely
my way of living
understand.
should come from other human being? Why? It's a
It's
big
not
why.
a single human being. It's collective groups of.
It doesn't
thought.
matter. We are all
They
equal.
change. We are in a
just
democracy.
to add to your
Things
point though,
change,
just to
we
add to
live.
your point,
But we are all
Audrey,
equal. Why should
do you
they?
remember in the Indian
should they decide for
subcontinent,
me?
in India, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, there was this cultural norm, not exception, called Shotidaho. Shotidaho is a
Bring up the next
bride,
one.
A woman who's married
Sorry?
will be
Bring up the next one.
burnt alive when her husband.
These are all red herrings. He's just bringing up, he's desperate. He's got absolutely nothing.
Is he appealing to another culture now?
Yes. In India, Shokida.
So why is that?
She'll be put in the.
Why is she going to defend that? What's that going to do with it?
This is exactly.
If I don't know the mechanism. I don't want to go into this graphics,
Yeah.
but she'll be burnt alive.
Yes.
A culture.
And there are many things
Now,
like
this cultural norm was agreed on by the society. Now, I'm sure you agree with that, right? Because it's the society that agrees.
that. I did not say societies were always correct.
So basically now, what we are now coming
I
up
did
with,
not say we are correct in
so what
this.
we are now coming up with, societal laws and regulation, as the brother is saying, is something that is going to constantly change due to our whims and desires
Yes.
and our ideas and so on.
Yes, because as we have seen, society constantly changes and flows and goes back and forth.
That means there's no right and wrong.
It means
Oh my God, Jesus. Just because we have changing norms, just because we have different things with different environments and different, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, does not mean there is no right or wrong. It just means it changes. 1,000 years ago, it was not considered wrong to have a slave. Today, we know that this was wrong. So you can't say we don't know there is right or wrong just because we had slavery 1,000 years ago. That's silly.
it changes, but it means
No, changes means there cannot be any right and wrong.
no, it
Shotidaho,
doesn't.
No, it
wife
doesn't mean
burning
this.
alive
Yes.
was a right thing to do. If you were not doing that yourself or your family, you'd be committing something called societal
Homosexual
wrong.
was wrong to do.
Yeah,
Or no,
societal
okay for them.
wrong. So if you were there back then, before it's now outlawed
Yes.
and totally removed from our culture, if back then, if you didn't burn yourself willingly, for example, when there, you'll be considered to be committing a wrong, societal wrong. So as you now define it, the rights and wrongs seems to be defined by the society, which can change.
Yes,
But
yes.
the system that we are introducing to you, as you will realize, is an introduction to our system of Islam. Society doesn't make.
Okay, now he's bringing up his God again. He always says he doesn't bring in his God. Now he's bringing up Islam. Now, we know today that slavery is wrong, but the Quran does not. The Quran still propagates and gives you all the different ways of treating slaves. It propagates and condones slavery, something we, society, know today is wrong. And you cannot get away with that because the Quran condones it. It doesn't say anywhere slavery is not a good idea. Do not own another human being. It doesn't say that. So you can't go and say, well, it's superior in any way. It's not. It's inferior. So even if we do things that are wrong, even if there were these times when it was, I don't know, dictated by society that the wife has to burn herself. We know today that this is wrong. And that's it. That's how we learn.
Make things right and wrong. There is an absolute standard
No,
which
there isn't.
we can use, from which we'll say this is right, this is wrong. Because only then we can say something is right, something is wrong. Otherwise, you cannot come along and say this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah, stop there,
the
man. It
system
stops. Of course, this falls prey to, Euthyphro's dilemma. How do you know it's right? Because God says so. Well, why? Because God says so. Is it right? Is it right because God says so? Is it right because God is appealing to something else by which this God is claiming that it's right? Either way, you've got a problem. And they can't get out of this, right? We've talked about this so many times already. I think we're like repeating
Well, they always
ourselves.
try.
But claiming that it's an absolute standard is a debatable point. And he makes the claim. And again, I don't know whether she will, because I don't remember having watched this. But we should all be, the moment they claim they have objectivity, that it's an absolute standard, whatever it is, we need to be jumping in immediately. They don't get a free pass by making that claim. And I think in the past, at least, I've seen people just kind of let them off the hook. Once you try and hold them to that, it just disintegrates in front of your very eyes. So we shouldn't be allowing them to make that vacuous claim, completely unsubstantiated.
Yeah.
Islam provides, which I would like you to look into.
Someone has already given me multiple.
Sure. To look into. You will see that this goes on these standards where the Creator exists. There's another one. The Creator exists, and the Creator has created us for a purpose. He didn't just create us all mere play and jest. Created for a reason. This universe will one day come to an end, like our lives will come to an end. But that will not be the end of it. There will be judgment and accountability.
Now comes the
based
fear.
on our
Yeah,
belief and
you can make up any
and
story
then
you
there'll
want
be
to
another-
make yourself feel good. You just got to demonstrate that it's true, number one, and number two, that it's a good thing. Go ahead. I mean, nobody's been able to do it for 2,000 years, but by all means, you can do it in Speaker's Corner and just make up your just so story if you like.
Well, Muhammad said that the guy who was sitting next to him will not be dead before the God will reveal himself. What happened? That was over 1,000 years ago. Nothing happened.
life, which is life either in a good place of tranquility.
Why is heaven a good place? I've never had anyone, nobody's been able to explain this to me. A lot of people make this claim, but nobody can tell me why.
What's the claim?
And
You will go to a nice place, which is heaven. Okay? Well, why is heaven nice?
Yeah,
what is good about
what's the
heaven?
difference between heaven and hell? What's the difference?
place or another place where there is misery, suffering,
bring back the
torture and pain.
conversation.
We would like you to consider
Why would a merciful God create this in the first place, Mr. Mansur?
where would you like to go.
Sister, you see what happened a while ago when you go back to a creator, then you bring back the conversation to where we was from before. Well, because talking about the creation, the beginning of creation of the universe, the Big Bang, and that imply that we're talking about a creator. When we talk about the three options and we turn on two of them because it didn't make no sense
Yeah,
logically.
we're back at the three options.
Yes, but logically, I was just taking a logical journey with a lady that it didn't make no sense logically, and you was agreeing that yes, that doesn't make no sense, turn it down. So the only one that left standing that makes sense is that there got to be something, somewhat, you can call it for the moment because it's anonymous, you don't know what, something, somewhat, an external entity that caused the Big Bang and give existence to the universe.
This is where I say, okay, this is your claim, what's the argument?
This guy, yeah, exactly. This guy's clueless. I mean, he's been in Speaker's Corner before. He rambles like a bit of a lunatic. He's absolutely clueless on anything about reality, and probably pretty clueless about his own Quran as well. But he's
Have you been to the Caribbean?
no, unfortunately, I haven't. I
Because I can understand with no problem. But then this is the funniest thing because we had an engine blowout and we had to land in Cuba, an emergency landing. So we had to wait a couple of days in Cuba. So this is the first time that I was in Cuba after a holiday in the Caribbean. So this is quite funny.
Let's entertain this hypothetical. You did your hypothetical of you're a corrupt human in a world with no God. Okay, there is a God. How do you know your story is correct?
Is she good or what? Yeah.
How do you know your book is the right one?
We can actually explore the idea of this possibility, just like we explored. Right.
Okay,
so
go for
if
it.
there was a God, what do we expect?
No, that's not the question. She asked, why is it your specific God? That is the question.
The nature, the attributes of God, this God be. Because how do we say this God exists in the first place? This God has to be in existence eternally.
How do you
with
know
no
that?
beginning, first of all. Because if something exists now, there has to be something always.
Why?
So that creator.
That is your claim.
we now
What's your
exist with a
argument?
I
creator.
don't know that, but sure.
Look, in this model, now there's a creator. It is now rationally conclusible, or what's the word you say?
Conclusive. Conclusive.
No, something that you can conclude. Rationally we can conclude. You can see how my English is. Sometimes I'm stuck. We can only rationally conclude that that being, God, has to be eternal. It cannot be a being that is
No, that doesn't follow.
began to exist.
No, of course not.
Yep.
Why
I
can't
want to
So
hear
they
where
tell
he's
me-
going.
Okay.
Exist.
Now, if a being exists eternally, that being has to exist with maximal perfection. Would
No,
not
it
be
doesn't.
limited by
Why?
any imperfection.
Why?
Give an example. Illustrate. If that being has created this universe, demonstrating there's power and energy involved,
Why?
that being will be all powerful, not be
Why?
limited.
No, that
like I'm a limited
doesn't
power.
follow
I can only
either.
do certain things. No, because if a being didn't exist, there is nothing that restricts eternity.
No,
the
he's just
power
piling
that
claim
being
on claim on
created
claim on
has.
claim.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that's
this
it.
is
So the-
all.
the
But these are all
power
non
that being
sequiturs.
will have
Just stop it there,
will
man.
be
Stops. I mean, there's a lot of things claiming that it's perfect, because it's even if we accept the claim that it's existed for all time, that doesn't mean that it's perfect. If it created the universe, that doesn't mean that it's all powerful. It just means that it's able to create a universe. One thing doesn't follow from the other. So whatever he's saying, and therefore this, one doesn't follow logically from the other, because we can show or we can present a reductio that says, hey, there's a God out there. Unless he's going to claim, well, what I mean by God is omniscient or whatever, well, then fine. But then that's a completely uninteresting claim. You've now just defined your particular God into existence, and that I'm not going to accept. But if you claim there's a powerful being that either existed eternally or that created this universe, it doesn't follow your conclusion that it must be perfect or that it must be all powerful. No, it doesn't.
Limited, absolute power. Likewise, if that being has knowledge, will not be limited, not be bound, will be unlimited, all knowledgeable.
No.
So if you now use this example about the will be the will which will be absolute as well. Will of an Almighty, which means if that being wills to something, that's precisely the process that we are coming to use. So now we realize if a being exists, that being must possess certain characteristics. Being the originator while not being originated has to be one. You cannot have more than one absolute.
Okay, go. Where are you
Okay, let
going?
me give you
Go.
an example again. If we envisage somehow there could be two absolutes of nature, what's going to happen to our universe? Is this something that we can even think about? Suppose now there are two such gods. Two such gods.
And once upon a time, and they
say
lived
five,
happily
but
ever
let's start
after.
with
Okay.
two. And God number 1 and 2, to make it simple. God wants, number 1 wants me to disappear from existence right now. All-powerful God, I should be able to annihilate from existence. No. This is what God number 1 is capable of, by definition, by conclusion. That if you exist eternally with all the power, then if you want to destroy something, you are capable of destroying. So God number 1 is able to destroy me from existence, right? Now if you have another God, who says, no, I want this horrible person to live another 50 years or so.
Okay, but there are other religions who have the exact same view.
No, let's understand.
Exactly.
We are now trying to understand why they
Just
can
stop it
only
there
be
for a moment.
one
Stops. There's a presupposition, a hidden presupposition in there that these gods would disagree with each other. Firstly,
Anthropomorphism, anthropomorphism.
Well, if you have an absolute God, then by definition there is only one. So that would nullify the second one. But if you said there were two powerful beings, there's nothing to suggest that they couldn't work in perfect harmony. What's to suggest they can't? What's the contradiction there is the claim I'd be asking him. And you can't say, oh, well, that one is all powerful, because then all you're saying is I'm defining that there is only one. Well, that doesn't work. So you couldn't have two all powerfuls. I agree with that, because something being all powerful means that it has all the power. Then you have a second one. But if you have two gods that are incredibly powerful beings that work in total unison with each other, where's the contradiction therein?
Yeah. Like you have an army, I mean, let's say 100 people, and they all have rifles. Do they automatically kill one another? No. Even humans are better than that.
But I think his presupposition is that they would want to do things that are in conflict with each other. Well, that's a presupposition that I don't accept, and you would have to suggest is either likely or it's impossible that they could actually work in perfect unison with each other.
Right.
And I'm suggesting that if they were that powerful, knowledgeable, etc., there's nothing to suggest that they couldn't work in perfect unison with each other and come to agreements or whatever the case is. This is what we're going to do, whatever it is. And if you're saying that's impossible, please demonstrate that for me.
No, he can't. I mean, this is just, again, claim, without even taking into consideration any kind of rational, logical, or any kind of realistic thinking. There's nothing there. This is just preaching.
And if you ask these guys, right, because they've been inculcated with the idea that there's only one God, etc., and it's exactly as you say. The moment you try and you say, well, why can't there be two? And I've asked them, right? For them, it's just like unthinkable because their brain hasn't actually even considered the idea, because they've been sort of brainwashed that there must only be one. But if you say there are two, they aren't all powerful, but are extremely powerful and work in perfect unison, what's the contradiction? They're like, they don't have anything to say, right? It's like, it's just beyond something that they could even think about. And now you present that hypothesis, because he's doing it here himself, and they don't know what to say.
Well, the other thing is, if I look at my expectation of what a God would be, I would expect perfection. Now, if two perfect gods work together, why should they get into any kind of an argument? What he is automatically assuming is that these gods are assholes. So that as soon as you have two of them, they will immediately fight each other. That's not showing a high degree of confidence in your God, is it?
I don't accept that is necessarily or even probably the case. And you'd have to make an argument for it rather than just making a claim.
Oh, this guy is so laughable.
If there were two beings, so God number two says, no, I want Mansur to be alive and well for another 100 years. What's going to happen? According to the definition, God number two is totally capable, totally able to keep me alive for another 100 years.
But if there were multiple gods, that situation would not, like based on your version of what a god is, that situation would not happen. There would be totally in sync, totally perfect.
No, why?
Like it would be.
Okay, can I say?
But the possibility could occur. Even if it didn't happen, even if they agreed that they would never disagree, the logical possibility would still be there that they could disagree, which is a problem.
And can I just add one point? If there's multiple gods, this is.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
If there's multiple gods, which is eternal and all powerful, and this is inevitable that day. Remember when we say the creator, then deductive thinking tells you that when you create something, you own it. You have ownership, right? So now we see So we see the homogeneous nature. We see the homogeneous nature of the universe, the solar system, and how things.
What is this guy on now? He's just off.
He's on
There's multiple gods.
fine-tuning.
I mean, each god, what they created, have ownership. They would have taken away what they have created.
Cool.
No,
So then
then
therefore
you're
you'd have
talking
seen.
utter nonsense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cool. This one god. Why is yours the?
No, okay. So logically and rationally, it makes sense to be one God. Okay.
No,
So
you
why
haven't
is this one God?
demonstrated
Now, the version that we are presenting to you is actually a God
Talking about the creator
who is
existence
the originator without being originated.
Not again. You've just said it twice.
of a creator.
The one who is absolute, the one who is only, and the one who is unique, has to be unique, and the one who doesn't have any lineage, because he won't be one anymore, there'll be more than one, or children, or any parentage where any parents and forefathers and so on.
For
Yeah.
example, in Christianity, it's all three in one. It's not multi. There is the Son.
Would that make sense, though, three in one?
No, because they are the same being as well. They're the same.
It's not really the same bearing. One of the things we come here in Speaker's Corner, as you realize, Audrey, we discussed
Yeah,
this
shouldn't
concept
be
of
bringing up
Trinity, and
Christianity,
you'll
leave it
find
aside.
Yeah, but he doesn't understand this. The problem is that most Muslims, 99% of Muslims, don't understand Trinity because Christians don't understand Trinity. So there's no point bringing it up. So she's making the point that you don't necessarily need to have this God. It could be a different one as well. And you have the triune, this Godhead thing, which works pretty well. Okay, so why not?
Yeah, well, it doesn't, if depending on the claims they make, Stops, and what most Trinitarians claim is that he's 100% human, 100% God, and he is God. But then there's the Father, the Son, and that becomes incoherent in my view. But
Yeah,
I think
of course.
bringing that up, of
But
course,
you can argue it.
but you can that's just kind of it's allowing them to go off on a tangent. I wanted to stick with, or I think maybe one of the things you could have done is stick with this idea. Tell me why, if you claim, as long as you don't claim that one God is omniscient, you can't have two omniscient. Well, you could. Well, could you? I suppose you could. What you can't have is two omnipotent gods, because omnipotent is all powerful, meaning that there's nothing that can be more powerful. And therefore, it seems to me that you could only have one of those. But if you have something that's not omnipotent, but you could have two perfect beings that have a tremendous amount of knowledge, as long as they're perfect, i.e. that once they make an agreement, it's perfectly adhered to, I don't see the contradiction with that. And they are just trying to say that it sounds to them absurd. Why? Because they've been brainwashed that there can only be one God.
Exactly.
But I don't see the argument that says that two highly powerful beings that are perfect or that agree. And even if I grant that it's logically possible they could disagree, there's no reason to suggest that they would. And so still, there's not a problem. There's no conflict that is necessarily the case. And if there isn't, then the argument that you couldn't have two gods is refuted.
Yeah. And Siduri and Jimra, no, there's no magic here. She was with a guy who was holding the flowers for her. He went to get a cup of coffee and gave her the flowers so that he can go. She's just holding onto them. No magic.
Really, I haven't met anyone who coherently has explained rationally. They will say, look, Trinity is not something that you should use your mind for. You should stick to the book, the Revelation, because it's a mystery. Mystery card displays when something is obviously irrational. So Trinity.
Yes, it's Mister. You are late. The debate is over. And then you go and you put yourself right in the middle of everything? Come on.
Sorry, I'm not watching.
There's a guy who just walked in and put his camera in front of everything and just said, oh, excuse me, and he just plonks his camera down.
Explain coherently at all.
That's bad etiquette.
Yeah. So when you said
I can't. I won't be able to win this.
no, it's not winning,
You will not be able to
Audrey.
win
If you
this.
think of winning and losing, let's end the discussion here. We don't come here to win an argument. Okay? I apologize if you thought. I do apologize sincerely to you, Audrey. If you,
He's found his exit strategy. Now he can run away. Because she said one word that he could latch onto.
Which was? I missed it, sorry. I was
Win.
avoiding a broken down car here.
Win, because he was saying, well, Christianity is not coherent and blah, 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 and that this idea of the Trinity is not a good one. And she says, look, I don't want to argue with you because I cannot win this argument. And he says, well, if this is about winning, then I might as well leave now. Because he heard this...
ever felt this is about.
I mean, this was a figure of speech that she was using, okay? She was just saying, look, don't argue with me because I can't give you uphill here because I think it's equally stupid. But the thing is, they believe it and it works. But now he's found his way out. So he can gracefully bow out now and say, okay, I'm out of here.
Winning the argument over you. I think I'm going to leave this conversation right now, okay? Leave you time to think, okay? But what I will do is, because we did not finish our conversation, that our belief is Islam.
Yes.
We are Muslims, submit and surrender to the will of one God. And this is what we would have called you to. But as I said, I'm leaving the conversation now. I would like you to, read the Quran, the book of these Muslims.
Read the Quran and you will definitely be an atheist.
Then perhaps
Yeah, we
maybe
can do it
one other
critically,
day.
yeah. for sure.
When you
Or at least a
speak with another
non-Muslim. at the very
Muslim
least.
somewhere, continue your discussion, Audrey. Continue your discussion. Is that okay?
No more than
Can I say one thing though?
and you should come and learn from
Thank
me.
you
when you
for
want-
talking to
All
me.
everything
I
you
hope
said has no
you're
meaning.
happy in
If
your
you want
religion.
to explain the
I hope
Trinity
your
to you, we
God
agree.
serves you well. I hope
Any
you're
God
I
who
hope
does
God
no
guides all of us,
Trinitarian is
you
not
and me,
God.
closer and
Any
closer to
God
the
that
truth.
has no
Now try and shake his hand.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay, Audrey, you're a star. You did exceptionally well. I think this was really, really great how you handled this. The arguments that you came up with are absolutely bang on. And even though I don't think you have much experience in doing this, you did extremely well against this guy, really. And Mansur, for somebody who is so experienced and for somebody who thinks so much of himself, you failed miserably. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think in final words, he didn't really have much of a critique other than outliers against her position, which, as I think we've agreed, we could bring against his position. So it's not helpful for him to point to an outlier and say, well, hey, if somebody doesn't agree or they're this, that, and the other, how would he convince them? Because as I've said, the same thing could be said of people in his side of the fence. So that isn't helpful. But then even when he eventually did get to his God, because we know that's eventually going to come, they tried to avoid it for as long as they can. But ultimately, we know that's the basis of their critique. Once he did get there, he didn't have anything substantial to say about it. And the claim that there couldn't be two gods, other than defining that you can't have two gods, I heard nothing substantial whatsoever. And what I did hear was, as Stops pointed out, anthropomorphize them, as in like they would have to disagree, or it's possible, or it's likely that they would disagree. And that's not necessarily the case. So, and again, we need an argument that demonstrates that that can't be the case. The fact that they just claim that there's, quote, one God doesn't make it the case, and doesn't mean that you couldn't have more than one unless you define it as there could only be one, and that's what I mean by God. Well, fine, but then that's totally uninteresting and uninformative, and I'm just not going to accept your vacuous claim. So there we have it again. As often the case, we need to hold Muslims in particular to task when they try and bring up morals and that they have an objective standard or that it's good, because as we see, once we start to dig below the surface, there's just nothing there. It's vacuous claims that they say with a level of certainty that passes for sincerity, but actually they can't actually argue for it. As we've seen on other live streams, even more recently, they don't have anything better. Most of them don't know what the Euthyphro dilemma is when they are confronted with it. They don't realize what a huge problem that is in their position. And the person that does seem to understand a little bit about it doesn't seem to have much of a response other than trying to borrow a Christian response, and even that doesn't work, as we've demonstrated on those other videos. So I think it's always good for us to challenge Muslims whenever they want to bring up morals or ethics. It's a death nail for them, and they just don't realize how bad it is from their point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And they will still go there. This is the funny thing.
Well, hopefully it's a case of, explaining it and giving examples and showing why they don't have a standard, and also showing why we have a standard that may not meet up to their supposedly, I would suggest, fictional idea of objectivity. Doesn't mean that we can't have a good standard that can be agreed upon. Once it is agreed upon, then we have a standard that works incredibly well based on certain outcomes. But their one is no better, and in fact a lot worse. So I think we're on, I think, firm ground when we have that conversation, especially if somebody's open-minded to it, I think, and especially if we were to put them to the test with something like slavery or many other things. We could even go with homosexuality or anything else, right, and still show that by the goal that we're invoking, that it's a superior system.
Okay, guys, 1.5 hours, brilliant. I think this is the shortest. I think this is the best. I think that's a very good time. So thank you, Rob. Thank you to everybody who's been listening. If you have something that you want us to review, go ahead and let us know. Otherwise, good night.
Shall
Goodbye.
we pop on just Discord Stops? See if anybody wants to pop on there. Or are you going off to
I'm
the
just
other
quickly
things?
going to eat some, grab something to eat, grab something to drink,
Okay.
look after the wifey, and then after that, yes.
All right, great.
All right,
So pop
guys.
it, 'cause I'm driving, so anybody who doesn't have our Discord link, maybe you can pop it in the channel, and then I'll pop over there once we're finished here.
Is it this one? Okay, just go to Discord, and if you already have received an invite, you will see the symbol of the. I could quickly pop this in here. What you need to look for is this symbol, which I just put onto the top right-hand corner. And if you see this symbol, then you just click on there and you'll find us. You just have to go to general chat and then voice or whatever you want to do this. Because I don't think anybody's going to write down now capital T, small d, 5, small
Well, hopefully they
b.
can click on it, right? But anyway, yeah, they're going to.
Well, you can't click on the link.
No, not the
And I don't
scrolling
have
one.
the.
But you can, from the banner, you can go into it, edit it, copy and paste that link and post it into the chat, and then people could actually click on it. That's what I
Okay.
normally do.
Excellent.
But cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Stops. Thanks to the people who are listening. Hopefully, again, it's been, if not entertaining, certainly somewhat educational. And we'll be back again at some point with another video.
All right, guys. Good night.